Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us again today. We have an extra special guest with us, Andre Chin. Jason Reynolds and myself will co-host today. And Andre, we want to jump right in because we really like to create these 30 minutes of action-packed with great information, takeaways, actionable items that the agents can go and implement in their business this afternoon if they wish to. So could first introduce yourself a little bit as to who you are, what you've been up to. And I know you live a really big life.
Yeah, so name's Andre Chin. For those of you that don't know me, I'm an operating principal out of the Kitchener Waterloo area, as well as a team owner, a business coach, a real estate coach, a KW approved trainer, and a bunch of other titles and things that I've done within the Keller Williams system over the years. Our team has been in since 2016. We're now the only expansion team left in Ontario, I believe, within Keller Williams. So we're in 4 locations. We just actually scaled down a little bit. Our production last year was 282 million. I forget what our GCI number was attached to that, but 4 locations: Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Hamilton, and Burlington. We've been doing this thing for quite a little while. So that's kind of the elevator pitch. I can certainly open that up if you have any questions about it, but I don't say that to brag or anything like that.
You also have to add that amongst all of those leadership hats, you're a husband and you're a father to lots of littles and
5 kids. Yeah, so we've got a big life and a busy life, right? So we've got 5 kids at home. Our youngest is 15 months old, so that keeps us really, really busy. We've got sports, rep hockey, rep soccer, gymnastics, dance. Like, we're kind of doing everything. And funny enough, that's how I structured my life. Was I knew that my kids were going to take priority, and so I had to look at my business and my life and figure out, okay, what are the places I need to be in that would create leverage that I could live that big life. And so that's where the team came from. And then even stepping into the operator role, that was like kind of the first thing we looked at, was how do we get systems and models in place so that we can continue to live the life that we want without having to change anything. And we think we've done a pretty good job with that.
That's amazing. I love that. And I think we were going to touch on the personal side of things a little bit later on, but that's amazing that you mentioned that, because people think about systems and models and stuff, and they think, oh, that sounds boring and it sounds hard and it sounds like I don't want to do that. It sounds like discipline, right? But let me ask you this. Can you have freedom without a little bit of discipline? Is that possible?
I don't think it's possible, right? And so, one of the things that one of my first mentors used to say to me is like, show me your habits and I'll show you your bank account. There's a direct relationship between the way you set your life up, the way you live your life, and the end results on the other side. And everything we do is about discipline. You hear a lot of different words get thrown around. And that's actually the one, interestingly enough, that you said it, Jason. That's the one that I always go back to, is we have a lot of different words that we can use for things. But if we don't start to look at discipline first, none of it's going to matter, because you're going to do a lot of work and it's not going to link together and it's not going to grow that life. So I don't believe that you can live a big life if you aren't disciplined, because there's too many things that are going to keep you off track and move you in different ways all the time. We talked a bit, Jason, about like that self-mastery piece, right? And it starts with oneself. It starts with what you have inside of you. And 80 to 90% of this industry is all going to be your mindset and how you show up. And then that was one of the biggest changes I made in 2016. Kind of like, I didn't start this way. I didn't start as the agent that was like, I'm going to change the world or I'm going to do any of those things. I actually started like everybody else and just wanted to, make that first 100,000. And it was actually just going to courses within Keller Williams that showed me that there's a bigger life that you can live through some of that self-mastery stuff that we talk about and growing your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and we titled this webinar "Self-Mastery" with Andre, because if there's one person in the KW ecosystem that I know, in our area especially, that has completely, embodied this, it's you. And self-mastery is part of what we at KW call the 6 personal perspectives. And for those of you that aren't with KW that are viewing right now, I don't want to get too deep into the KW rabbit hole, but maybe you can give viewers a bit of an idea of what the 6 personal perspectives are, like without going too deep into it, and just, maybe how it's helped you kind of live your big life.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that, we talk about it in KW as a KW thing, when the reality is Gary kind of took what he was seeing everywhere else and made it into just a place that we could get the information. But it's everywhere, and it's not just limited to us or just the real estate or just one business. And so, there's those 6 personal steps, and the first one is committing to self-mastery. This is also one of my favorite courses to teach because of what it can do for people's lives. But that first one is committing to self-mastery. If you haven't read the book, The Outliers, I recommend everybody go out and get it. I'll say it again, The Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell. It's a phenomenal book that talks about self-mastery versus mastery. And one of the things I talk about, even just in that instance, is, let's say lead generation is one of the things you want to become a master of. Now, our recommendation is, 3 hours a day, making sure you're working on your business, generating leads for your business. It would take up to 11 and a half years for you to become a master of one of those skills, just to put it in context for people. So it's not about the destination. It's actually about the journey of self-mastery and how you're going to become a better person every single day. And listening to a few Olympians, like obviously it's that time of year right now, and you listen to some of those people that are winning, you hear a lot of the same repetitive stuff about, hey, I just wanted to get 1% better every single day in what I did. And that's really what committing to self-mastery is. And then there's things like the 80-20 principle, coming from entrepreneurial to purposeful, becoming learning-based, getting rid of those limiting beliefs and being accountable. I mean, even as I talk about removing those limiting beliefs, I still have my bold bracelet on. The first time I took bold was a decade ago, and I've worn a bold bracelet for 10 years in a row. And even when I snap them, break them, they disintegrate, everything else, I always find a way to get another one, because again, that's my reminder that, limiting beliefs are going to creep up, and I have an opportunity to tackle them when they are. Then you look at like the 80-20 principle, understanding that 80% of the results we're going to get are from doing the 20% of the actions. And so realtors have a really interesting time, because we aren't always sure how to do some of the things that we do, especially when we get into the industry or even time in the industry. And we know that there's these 20% activities that if we do them right, we should get a result on the other side. Yet this is an industry where there's so much distraction. There's so many people that come at you every day for, with the sales pitch that, hey, if you do this, you can get one more deal if you do that. And so that's where a lot of that discipline comes in the committing to self-mastery and going through the 80-20 principle, is that you have to be disciplined enough to stay on task even when it's hard. And so, I remember my first year getting into the business, I did one deal right out of the gate. And I knew that was from lead gen efforts and talking to people prior to getting licensed. I was working behind a bar and spent a lot of time plugging myself. And then I didn't do anything for 6 or 7 months. And then I did 25 deals on the back end in the last 6 months. And so people were like, oh my God, that's actually incredible. Well, I didn't know any differently, because when I came into the business, I just had a friend that said, hey, any day you don't find a lead is a day that you're unemployed. Now go to work. And that was the only note I had. I had no other training and nothing else. And so I spent 6 months with no business trying to talk to people every single day. That took a ton of discipline and a ton of that committing to that mastery, as well as focusing on the 20%. I didn't have business cards. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a website. I had none of that stuff done. I literally just spent every single day talking to people until I could generate a deal. So it does work for those that put their mindset and their business forward and kind of tune out the noise and tune out the distractions.
Right. Yeah. I think sometimes we get a little stuck on the gimmicks and, the shiny new thing and looking for a magic pill, when at the end of the day, the way to get to your goals is consistency and a little bit of discipline. And last week we were at FSO and Jen said, take action to get through fear, right? And then on the other side of fear is where you're going to find your big life, which I loved.
Yeah, and I mean, if fear is showing up, like a lot of us run away from fear, right? Fear shows up, and it shows up for everybody, right? Every time I get on stage, right before I do that, I get those little butterflies show over my stomach, kind of going, is this the right thing? Do I have my talk nailed down? Do I know the course that I'm teaching? It shows up every single time, and I live and breathe by that. Like if the fear shows up, I'm exactly where I want to be, and everything that I need is on the other side of that fear. And so, again, when you are disciplined and you have your habits in place and you have your routines in place and you know what you're doing every day, the next piece is kind of trusting that process. But that's where the mindset and the foundational skills of like the 6 personal perspectives come into play, because like everybody else, this is a fearful time. We just came out of what was a speed-based market. Now we're back into a skill-based market. Most agents have never been in a market like this. And we as leaders are sort of saying, hey, you've got to continue, you've got to keep trucking. So I know personally that that's very, very difficult. I started in 2009, which for most of you that are listening, that was the tail end of a global recession. Houses weren't selling. The average days on market were over 160 days on market. So you had to take a lot of listings, and things sat for a really long time. And so it's interesting, like me hearing people talk today where they're like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. My listing's been on market 3 weeks. And I'm going, what a different time to be alive when, if I had something sold in 3 months, I was, chanting from the rooftops, look at what I did. But having that strong mindset and being able to count on the end results through my skills and learning what I've done, it's not as scary because now I have a tangible system that I can work through. And so it starts with that personal commitment to yourself, right? Like I talk about, you heard Glover talk about it, myself, a few others, we talk about, win the morning, win the day as an example. So getting up, having that same sort of routine every day before you get to the office, so that by the time you get in, your day is kind of on autopilot, the hard stuff's out of the way. When I was actively lead generating, I did the same thing. It was the same system. I got up, did the same thing, got my breakfast in, my workout in, kind of won the morning so that I had a win to start the day, so that even if I didn't connect with anybody 3, 4, 5 hours on the phone and it didn't go well, I still won the morning, which meant I still won. In my mind, I still won the day, and I just needed to continue to go on looking for other wins, but I already had a win done. And so that mindset and that skill fostering, I still do all the same stuff to this day, where, our team lead generates together every day. Our team scripts together every day. We spend a lot of time doing these things. And even though I'm not necessarily looking for a buyer or a seller, it's still practicing and honing the skills that I believe, I can still jump in and do the job if I had to. And so that's that commitment to my business and to my personal life. And then it bleeds into everything else that I do.
Amazing. That's so, and I started in 2008, just before you, Andre. So I had one listing for 3 summers. So,
yeah, it was a really hard time.
For those of you that don't understand what an upside down house was, it was that we were trying to sell it and they owed a lot more. So there was a lot of creative financing behind it. I love when you said speed versus skill when we're describing our market, because that is so where we're at. I just have a quick question before we move on those days that you do feel like you're kind of getting thumped over the head more times than you're winning. What do you do to shift that energy?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the big one for me is I don't hold on to anything. And so something that I teach my team, and I teach a lot when I'm coaching and leading other agents, is one of the toxic traits, we'll call it, right? You hear those words thrown around all the time, but one of those toxic traits of top producers and top leaders is they have a really, really short memory. And so one of the things I instituted years ago, and I've shortened it over time. So I've been with my coach almost a decade as well. And so he used to start by saying, okay, you've got a week. And so when I was really young and kind of, trying to figure it out, he'd go, hey, feel what you need to feel for a week, try to get over it. And then, after a couple times, he was like, okay, we're going to move you to a few days and we're going to move you to 24 hours. And now he sort of says, okay, you've got 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to scream, yell, do whatever you need to, walk outside, go to the bathroom, whatever it is. And then you're going to come down, you're going to sit down, you're going to write it out, and you're going to move on. And I used to tell him he's crazy. I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to get to 5 minutes. But that's where I'm at right now, is when those days aren't going well, I don't dwell on it. I go and I look and I say, okay, maybe it's the neighborhood I'm calling. Maybe it's the agent I'm trying to reach out to. Maybe it's the AV problem. There are all these little things. And being coached by Diana Kokoska back in the day was exceptional for that, because Diana used to always just say to me, Andre, everything that you have a problem with, none of it matters in the grand scheme of the world. The planet's still spinning, the sun's still coming up, people are still making money, people are still selling houses. So why are you letting the fact that a remote control doesn't work ruin your day? Get over it, move on. And so I don't do anything special other than my self-talk kicks in. And it's like, you hear Mel Robbins, she's got the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule, and then she changes. I've implemented things like that into my life where it's just, I've got 5 minutes. I know that. I hit the timer. You've got 5 minutes to wallow in self-pity. And then when the timer hits, we got to get back to work. We've got stuff to do. There are people that count on us, my family especially being one of those. And it sort of just snaps me out of it. It's a pattern interrupt, snaps me out of it, and I go back to doing what I need to do. And I always find on the other side of it, very shortly after, whatever the problem is, very shortly after, a win shows up of some sort. It could be something as simple as just, hey, someone giving me contact information or agreeing to come out to a course or any version of that. But you're usually right at the edge. As you're about to break, there's something on the other side of that that's about to win. And so, for those of you that are taking bold, you got to have a breakdown, have a breakthrough, but you don't have to stay in breakdown for a really long time. You can get out of that quickly and get back to business, because it's not going to stop. And the longer you sit there and wallow, the longer that pain is going to continue, versus accepting it, understanding the reality of where you are, being real about it. It's kind of turning off that drunk monkey, that thing in the back of your head that wants you to be negative. Remember, our brains are trained to protect us. That started in the caveman days. It was protection. That's what it's there for. So when fear, anxiety, all those things show up, your brain believes it's trying to protect you from something, and you just have to make the decision if what it's stopping you from or trying to stop you from is actually worth the time and the effort you're going to invest to go get it. And once you do that, it becomes really, really easy. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's just like running 5 or 10K. Your body is going to try to stop you. Or, I jumped on the ice bath trend for a little while and still do that. And that was one of the hardest things to do. I remember the first time I did it, I lasted 10 seconds. And then the next day I got up and I lasted 12 seconds. And then the next day I got up and it was 28 seconds. And then just every day. And now I can get into one of those things and I can sit there for 10 to 15 minutes because it doesn't bother me in the same way. And that's just a really great example of everything we go through in life. Each time you go back, it just gets easier and easier and easier until you don't even think about it and you actually start to crave it. So there are those days and weeks that I don't end up doing some of the things like getting in the ice bath. And then at the end of the week, my body and my mindset is like, no, we need to get back to that because it feels really good and it helps us move forward.
Wow.
Hopefully that helps. That was a really long answer, Christina.
That's awesome. That's great. You said a couple of things I wanted to touch on. So one thing you said, sometimes when things feel really hard, you think about your family, and that comes back to what? That's your big why, right? And the concept of the big why has been something that has literally saved me from, just being scared of so many different things. I think about, why am I doing this every day? I'm doing it for my family. And that's usually a lot of our big whys are our family. We have different ones. And the other thing you mentioned is that sometimes after you do that hard thing, there's like almost an epiphany or something, and it feels so much better on the other side. And I've told my team this before too, like the hardest phone call that you will ever make is the very first one, right? And then the next one's a little easier, the next one's a little easier, and it gets easier and easier, right? And it's the same concept that you're talking about with the ice baths. You kind of.
Well, and it was so funny you say that, right? Because I used to hate my calls. I used to come. I was a cold caller. Doors didn't work quite for me as well. Probably the stature that I'm 6'3". I'm a big guy. Knocking on someone's door, it used to just get weird results. So I thought that's not going to be the one. I'm going to go to the phones. But I used to start my first call with a family member or someone that was a friend. Because what I realized is if the first call was crap, it would always set me up for a terrible mindset. So what I did is I stopped calling strangers first, and I called either someone I had already spoken to that I could have a great conversation with. So I either did a follow-up call, just one of them, or I'd call a family member and I'd go, hey, I'm about to make my calls. The reason I'm calling you today is just to see if you have any real estate plans. And there would be times it would even be my mom, and she'd be like, Andre, I talked to you yesterday. What are you calling me for? But I knew I'd come out of that call.
I need you, Mom.
I knew I wasn't coming out of that call in a bad place. I was coming out of that call in a good place. And so in my mind, I'd already won. I had a great call. I won. You know, a lot of times it was a follow-up call on a lead somebody had already talked to, and just, hey, just want to check in. You still want to make a move this year? Yeah, we love the reports. We love what we're getting. Thank you. Keep sending them. And so I started on a high, and that just took so much longer for those hard calls to knock me off, because I was already, in my mind, I'd already had a great call. So that's another strategy that you can do. And then, yeah, I had my why everywhere. It's in my email, it's posted, it's on our Google Drive. I carry it around with me, and it's evolved with me over the time as life's gotten a little bit bigger. But it did start with being able to provide for my family. And added to that, it was then that I never wanted to miss anything from my family. So real estate's one of those things that you can miss everything that happens in life. And I made a determination that I didn't want to miss it. So then I needed to create leverage in my life. And then the why has now evolved into not just helping my family, but also helping as many people as humanly possible change their lives, and create wealth in their life. And so I have that written out, and I put it everywhere, and I try to share it with as many people as I can, because the more people that know about my why, one of the things it does is it attracts more people to helping me to live that purpose and to get there. It also creates massive accountability in my world, where I don't get to drift away from some of those things, because I've said to my people that I've committed to some of these growth paths. And I share all my goals with our entire team and things of that nature. But we keep that why, all of us keep that why front and center, so that on those really hard days, those days that the market's tough. I mean, we had an agent, I won't use her name, but when the market first got a little weird about a month and a half ago, she called me and she said, hey, I just lost 12 of my active clients, just fell off. They just all don't want to do anything. So think about what that does to an agent, right? You're on a team, you've already done 8 or 9 deals, and you just saw the second half of your year fall out. So she was having a really tough time, and I just said, hey, you're about to get married really soon. How big a deal is that for you? And she was like, oh my God, it's the best, blah, blah, blah. And he said, what's your purpose after you get married? What are you going to go do? And she shared a bunch of stuff. And I said, why don't you just go think about that for the day, and then come back tomorrow and tell me what you're going to go do? And it didn't last even a half an hour. Within like 10 minutes, I got a text back, hey, back on the phones, found 2 more new clients. So that's the power of your why, when you let it drive you and you let it keep you focused. Is life's not so bad, and these things that happen are just moments in time on a journey towards a bigger, higher calling, whatever that is for you.
Wow,
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Jason, you want to go for
Yeah, I was going to say, so we've got about 8 minutes left. We always try to leave. I mean, all this has been amazing information. If you were talking to an agent who is looking to, grow their bigger life or break through a ceiling of achievement that they've been hitting or something, what would be some actionable steps that you could give them? Like, where do they start?
Yeah, so I think the first one is honestly getting a phone call with like you, Jason, or you, Christina. Like, if you're struggling, you don't know what to do next. Like the very first thing that changed my life was I went and knocked on my team leader's door. So I had a great team leader like Jason. I had a great mentor in that person, and I was struggling. I was floundering. I didn't know what to do next. So I went and knocked on his door, and he said, hey, the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to put accountability to your life. We're going to get rid of all the crap, but we're just going to get really accountable around 3 things: lead generation, lead follow-up, and then letting me know the results of that. And that was all we were going to do. I think a lot of agents right now, as the fear setting in, they're kind of looking at their lives and their business, wondering if they can do it. And if you listen to Gary Keller, he's got a great podcast on the MRA podcast. Jason Abrams does the same thing. We've also got our podcast as well that we do. But the common message that comes through in everything that you do is pick the one thing that's going to change your business and just do that. Focus on that as much as you can. And so from a skill-based standpoint, I would say the only thing that works right now is you have to talk to your database. And so the database has been one of those things that through the speed market, it wasn't as important, right? People were calling us. The market was crazy. It was like, I need a realtor. I'm just going to call somebody that I know. In this market, the best thing you can do for yourself is communicate and go develop relationships with the people that know and love you. I would spend the next 30 days, if you wanted something actionable to do and you're trying to turn your business around, just go call everybody that knows you, go back into care calls and just say, hey, I just want to check on you and make sure that the market's going well for you, or that you're doing okay, or that there's nothing I can do to help you. How are you doing? How are the interest rates affecting you? And just get back into relationship with people. That would be step one. Step two in that database is I would figure out, am I talking to them enough? Because don't kid yourself, every single person in your database is in somebody else's database of some sort getting information sent to them. It's just a reality. We have to accept it. And so are they getting information that's useful and valuable to them, or are they just getting another sales pitch and another plug? We heard Jason Abrams talked about it on a chat I was having with him. And he said, instead of sending people, hey, you might want to repair your siding, what if you sent them something that was actually tangible that could help them with their day-to-day life? Right. So if we stayed on siding, you could call them up and go, hey, the average lifespan of siding is, if it's aluminum, it's 20 to 25 years. I've got 3 really great vendors and someone that's willing to come out, take a look at what you have going, and can give you an instant access and report to how you can make your home insulation better, as an example. Now you've given them something that's tangible and something they can work with, and you provided value to their lives. This is an industry that's quite simple that way, where if we provide value to our clients and we connect with our clients, nobody else can steal our clients. So if I was an agent, I was starting out or struggling or doing any of that stuff, I would wipe everything off my desk. I'd clear everything. I'd put a whiteboard back up, because in some way we sort of got away from using old school methodologies. And I would just get on the phone or start doing pop-bys and just go talk to people and find out how they're doing. In COVID, when COVID hit, which was a really weird time for all of us, that was the only message we got. For those of you that were here, you would have heard care calls. Pick up the phone and then tell somebody that you care about them. Most realtors who did that in 2020 had some of the best years in that year, and then following up in 2021, and then we stopped doing it. So for me, that would be the simple, tangible thing. And then second to that, start looking at your morning routine, start looking at your end of day routine. Are you not going to bed enough? So are you not getting enough sleep? You're waking up groggy, you're feeling like crap when you get up. When you get up in the morning, are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing some simple things? And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't even have to be up at 4 a.m. like some of us nut jobs are doing. Get up, look yourself in the mirror, go, hey, what do I got to do for myself today? How do I make myself better? And what's the one thing I can do that's just going to make me 1% better today? And it could be something as simple as scripting with your team leader, joining a scripting group, having an accountability partner, or simply just writing your goals out and putting them on the wall and keeping them everywhere with you. So there's a lot of little things that you can do. I think one of the things that when we get bogged down, we forget to do is we go internal and we don't go outside to the world because we're scared or we're fearful. I would challenge everybody that's listening to go out into the world, find somebody, share your goals with them, and then create an accountability partner there as well, so that you can continue to grow your life and grow your business, and then get that big why up in front of you with those goals, so you have something to work on every single day.
I love it. Those are really good actionable steps. And it all comes back down to one little bit of improvement at a time, right? 1% improvement is better than no improvement. And I'm reminded of another book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It's the same concept. If you can just improve a little bit at a time, you're gonna reach that mountaintop eventually.
And I think it's fair to acknowledge.
And Jason,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Christina. Sorry, I think we're echoing a little bit. Go ahead.
Sorry, everything that you said, it goes back to they're easy, not simple. That's not rocket science information, but you got to take action.
100%. Action leads to everything. Jason, you mentioned Darren Hardy. He still does his morning. So if you're looking for something to do, go to YouTube, search for Darren Hardy. He does a 15-minute or so chat every morning. I've been listening to that every morning for almost 15 years, because somebody on a call like this said, hey, go read this book, Compound Effect, and go listen to this guy. And so I just made it part of my morning routine. And even just something simple like that, for a while it was Diana Kokoska I was listening to every morning. And then when she stopped doing it, I went back to Darren. And so there's wins everywhere. And I think for everybody listening, it's you have to get out of your comfort zone. If you're comfortable, it means you're not growing. And if you're not growing, it means your business isn't growing, because when something's not growing, it is dying. There's no in between. Things don't sit in limbo. So either choose to get on a growth path for yourself, or understand that your business is going to slowly die over time. And it's just simple little changes that you execute in your life every day that help make a really, really big life. So if you take the One Thing book, and I know we're almost out of time, but if you take the One Thing book, Jay Papasan talks about that first domino, but by the time you get to 32 dominoes, the height of that is now the size of Mount Everest. And most people don't think about that. A domino's, this big, and by the time it gets to 32 of them, it's almost the height of Everest. And that's the beauty of the compound effect and how you can change your life just by doing small little things.
Yeah. And what feels really hard today eventually won't feel hard, right? It's just like, the muscle analogy. You go to the gym, you're lifting 10 pounds today. In a year from now, you're lifting 15 pounds. And it's like 10 pounds. What was that all about? It's the same effect, right?
Yeah, awesome. Exactly. And that's exactly it. So thank you. Thank you both.
Amazing. Thank you, Andre. That was fantastic. So many good points here.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate you. Professionally, you've been a mentor as well. And I thank you for sharing all your nuggets. And I don't have any questions in the chat right now, but everybody gets a copy of this video and they will reach out.
Yeah, and if anyone needs anything, Instagram is probably easiest to get a hold of me, Andre Chin KW. All my stuff's there, so you can shoot me a message. I'm happy to chat with anybody who wants to kind of improve themselves or improve their business. That's a personal journey of mine, is to just help people step into their superpower. And so if anyone needs help, find me on Instagram and send me a message.
Excellent.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thanks, Andre.
Everybody have a great day. Thanks again.
Bye, everybody.